Welcome to episode 3 of season 5 of Whole Lot of Wolves. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I am Paul LePage.
Joining us in New York, our great producer, Mr. Alex Patakis.
Hello, boys.
And on the socials, wearing his Team Mexico kit, it is Danny Paletti.
Good evening.
And our guest tonight, the artist formerly known as Nothing But Neto, now Stone Cold Strand Larson. It is Adam. How's it going, Adam?
Hey, how's it going? Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, guys, we were texting at halftime going, man, it's going to be tough to fit this game in an hour. It's 2-2, a lot of action, everything going on. And then the wheels fell off in the second half. 6-2 final. Wolves lose to Chelsea, and we went, let's figure out a different way to kind of format the show this week instead of just going goal for goal. So this week, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to highlight the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you're going to really say the scoreline itself was ugly, but we'll get to it. So, guys, we're going to start with the good. And, Paul, I'll start with you on this. Boy, that Strand Larson-Cunha partnership is looking pretty good.
It is exactly what you want from that type of forward line partnership. They both seem to be ideally suited to complement each other's game. Both like each other's goals and things like that. It was just, we've been crying out for it for so long, and it looks like it's finally here. And just out of the two, if that can enhance each other's game and give Cunha license in that 10, but importantly, put Strand Larsen's where he needs to be. That was the ideal goal of his that we've been crying out for. That number 9 in the box, put the ball in the back of the net. Perfect. That's what we want. That's hopefully what we see more of.
Adam, you made him your moniker, but man, he seems like he's going to be a superstar in the making.
Yeah, he lived up to the hype. Deserves to crack open a couple of Coors Lights for that goal. Also notably, when he took that direct free kick to the face, rolled backwards, popped right up, ran it off, played the rest. I mean, he said when he signed that if he needs to lose a couple teeth in a game, he'll be happy to do it. And I think he showed it. So
I thought of that immediately.
I was very happy to see him live up to his own hype. And I hope to see 20 more of those goals. And it was a stretching goal. It wasn't even like, perfectly put on a platter for him. He had to stretch for it. He tried to do that before. He just missed it. He was going for it. And we've been missing that 9, and he's that 9.
I thought what was interesting as well, too, Alex, was he was trying to get the crowd pumped up. I was a little late turning on the game because I was having TV issues. I turned it on. It's 1-0 already. And the crowd sounded quiet. And he was out there, trying to pump them up. That's rare to see from a kid making his first start at a place.
Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest way to describe how I feel about Strand Larsen is that he gets it. Like, he just gets it. He understands how to win this fan base over. He clearly wants to be here. He's the kind of player who's going to leave it all out there, and it's going to resonate with the, blue collar folks of Wolverhampton and the West Midlands. And I think it's awesome. Like, Wolves, I feel like I love when like João Gomez celebrates tackles that he makes when he's dispossessing people, which even though some people thought he was bad in this game, he did quite a bit. I thought he kind of sent a message to Enzo that, like, I could do this all day, bro. But when Strand Larsen won that tackle, which they whistled for a foul, which was not a foul, I was so jacked up when he started celebrating and using that as an excuse to get the fans into it. So he gets it. He's the kind of player who is going to create an atmosphere at Molineux many times this year, both through his goals and just the effort that he gives on the pitch. And, in an otherwise very dark Sunday, I was so happy to see that.
And Cunha looked unstoppable at times. Danny, you predicted Strand Larsen top goal scorer with 11. Are you sticking with that, or you think Cunha could be this top goal scorer?
I always thought, and I still think, that Cunha is a good shout because the way that we play, he's always going to have chances. But I think this game, if anything, I mean, they each scored one, shows that it's going to probably be neck and neck, assuming they both stay healthy. And that was my caveat at the time, if I remember correctly, is that maybe Strand Larson has an injury problem too, but Cunha we know has priors. So
yeah. So then comes the little bit of controversy here when we're talking about goal chances. The expected goal stat said Wolves had 1.96, and Chelsea only had 1.68. This despite them scoring 6 goals. I don't know how there's that big of a discrepancy because, look, the defending was awful, but not really that bad. What do you take from that stat, Adam?
That XG is meaningless. I mean, their 6 goals weren't like worldies, right? Like they were pretty good chances that they created. They were from
despite
open
the
play.
announcers saying that Cole Palmer goal was like the goal of the year, which I didn't understand that.
Yeah, but that's just the Chelsea writing that we're going to hear for the rest of the season. Now, if they tend to play as well as they played against us, which TBD, but yeah, I mean, we had some great chances in the first half. We probably deserved to maybe score 1 or 2 more. The Lamina finish, even though it was offsides, was incredible. Looked like a striker there, but they beat us. In no way can you say no. Well, we won an XG. Like it's a meaningless tool to see if a team played well or not.
Danny, also on the good side, was Ryan Aitnery offensively. Boy, he was causing all kinds of problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's indicative of the way that the game went, which is that it was very much a game of 2 halves. I think if we duplicated the first half in the second half, I don't think this would have been a particularly out of the ordinary podcast. But in that first half, especially, he was exactly what we come to expect out of him. He was marauding. The run for the Cunha goal is just insane, to be honest. I mean, you could say that it exposes Chelsea's weakness. They're not really, a cohesive team yet, and who knows when they will be. But still, I mean, I immediately thought of Gary O'Neill's comments, whenever that was, 6 months ago, maybe, about how he loves how crazy Aitnouri is, that he does, 10 Maradona walks every week, and that's immediately why I put that GIF on the timeline, because, I just immediately flashbacks to Maradona just slicing through an entire team on his own.
I think especially with Cunha's goal, what was a positive was that it was centrally crafted. It was down the center of the pitch. So there's often been mentioned that, well, we haven't really got that creativity. If you got 2 holding midfielders and the forward players, but that was someone picking up the ball in between those lines, between the midfield and the defense, like exactly the type of spot that you can cause damage with, and that's what he did. And it's just a matter now of figuring out how they can do more of it, because everything's there, the talent there's the creativity. How can that be maximized?
Muted.
Sorry, guys. So speaking of Aitnery, now it's time to look at the bad. And there was a no stupid question about this, right, Alex?
No, it was one of mine, actually.
Oh, it's one of your.
Yeah.
Not one of my questions. It came through on email. So it was from Joe in Chicago. He emailed hello@wholelotofwolves.com, and he asks about Aitnouri. We know Ryan Aitnouri is a talented player. He's not a fullback and got continually exposed on that left-hand side. Would you bench him next week? How do you replace him? Or where does he play? Different formation, impact player off the bench, or so forth?
What are your thoughts, Paul?
I agree. He's not a left back, and it's funny that it just made me think probably yesterday and into today that maybe that's one thing that Lopetegui had right in that he never played him as a left back. It was always Totti in that berth when he was at the helm. So possibly a little too prescriptive in looking at him defensively, where we continually see all the talent offensively. Now, how he fits into that, I'd love to see him further forward, more as a winger, certainly as a left midfielder. Even after that goal yesterday, I could generally see him in a 4-3-3 as a central midfielder on the left-hand side, if there's the correct balance in there. So this is the challenge we got. It's going to lead into other topics that we're going to talk about tonight in terms of players and where they play and how they fit in. But he's got to play, but he can't be a left back.
And so, Alex, Gary O'Neill has spent the preseason trying to put into place this back four. Not good to start the year. Granted, it's against two highly talented offensive teams. So what do? Do we stick with it? Do you go to a back five? Do you split it?
So I think the answer, I think it's going to be unpopular because I think I am more bullish on the back four than others. And I understand that, many have called Gary O'Neill naive and foolish for thinking that they can line up that way against Chelsea. For the most part, through 2 games, this is absolutely insane to say when their goal difference is -6 and they've shipped 8 goals in 2 matches. But even again, Arsenal's a better team in my mind than Chelsea, and it wasn't that rough against Arsenal. And I completely agree with the point that Noah Telford brought up earlier, that Aït-Nouri is really a huge part of the problem, culpable for 5 goals, because Saka scoring from that far out, on his left foot. I understand it's Bukayo Saka and that happens, but that's not a systematic failure. That's a Ryan Aït-Nouri failure. So I think the answer to your question is, there's probably situations where it needs to be a little bit of both. And there's probably going to have to be a way that they can figure out if Totti Gomez can play left back and they can sign a proper senior center back, if they don't think that guy exists on their team, which it seems pretty clear that Gary O'Neill doesn't think, then Ryan Aït-Nouri can maybe play elsewhere on the pitch, further up the pitch, without being a true wing back and in a true back three in terms of center backs. There has to be some give when it comes to the matchup. I think there's some games where it makes a little bit more sense to have Totti there, and there probably are some games where it makes more sense to have Aït-Nouri back there, because you do want to be on the front foot against these teams that we were so frustratingly didn't score goals against, that we felt like we should be blowing out. I don't want to play a back five the rest of the year. I think we should keep doing what we're doing, because when you play like you did against Chelsea and Arsenal against Ipswich, guess what? The XG will probably be above 2, and maybe you don't ship such terrible goals. But there has to be, the flexibility of Aït-Nouri and Totti was the reason they felt like they could move on from Hugo Bueno, who was the only true left back on the team, and that they sent out, who's going to be starting Champions League games for Feyenoord. So if that's why you felt comfortable at that position, then you have to ride it out. And I don't think that they should just revert back to their old ways, because to me, it feels like a setback for the club. And you could say, oh, it's all about staying up, and that's just 14th. I'll just sign up for that all day again. Fine. But, then you're just going to keep cycling through managers who keep saying the same things. They have ambition. You need to have ambition. Gary O'Neill has that. Some of these players have that. So maybe I'm dumb, and maybe Wolves will be sitting with a -25 goal differential, a couple months into the season. But I think you have to keep going in this path. It's too far gone now. And not to mention, it's way more fun to watch.
I haven't seen you this fired up in a long time, Alex.
Well, I just think it's okay.
Let him cook, baby.
There's an element of the back five that just feels very championship level. We need to grow. We need to move past that. There are teams with less resources than Wolverhampton Wanderers who play a back four in the best league in the world. And guess what? They don't get so sad about it and cry and be oh, how are we going to cope with the back four in this league? Yeah, people do it all the time. Brentford does it with the center back we let go and tried to replace with another Burnley Irish defender who's probably worse than Nathan Collins. So just be smarter in the way you assemble your squad and get Fosun to spend the damn money on the positions you need to make this work, because we have the pieces elsewhere. Finally, please. Sorry, now I shut up.
Adam, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could definitely blame Aitnery for a few of the goals, but you also have to blame the midfielders for also bum rushing the forward line. The whole way we saw them play in preseason was that one of the midfielders would drop in and create a back line for Aitnery or Lima to go forward. And each time, Mario Lemina and João Gomez were way too far ahead. I mean, we saw the best of Mario Lemina when he plays box to box, and I don't want to discourage that either. But at the same time, if Aitnery is a terrible left back and he's a better left wing back, then you got to have one of your midfielders drop back. And if that means that we have to play Boubacar instead of Hwang Hee-chan, who didn't add anything to this game, in order to play a back five when we're out of possession, then that's what we need to do. If we're not going to spend money on the position, if we're going to spend money on the position, then I think we'll be okay, and we can continue to play the 4-4-2 or the back four the way that Gary O'Neill's been wanting to play it. But if not, then that's the solution: is you lose one of your forward line, the ones who haven't been adding anything, and you just drop them in as we saw they were supposed to do during preseason.
I'm still kind of thinking this is a big week for the back four because this is against the lesser squads like Burnley and should be Forest. And you need the back four to break these teams down. Now, I'd be fine with the back five against maybe some of the top teams, but these two matchups are what the back four is for. Paul, it really seemed like after that first half, you could argue Wolves maybe had the better half, even though it was 2-2. But just real slow starting second half again.
Well, both really. It was like the writing was on the wall in the first half. In that first two attacks, it was down our left, and it looked troubling, and it gave you that unnerving sense that something bad was going to happen. And to have that with the first corner, you can say there was luck involved in that they wouldn't have planned for the defending header to come back off Cunha and effectively land at someone who was unmarked. I saw a lot of criticism that Doherty wasn't even near him, but he wasn't supposed to be. If you're defending that box in zonal, like it looked like there were, that wouldn't have been the plan unless there was some foresight into what the play was going to be. So I think that was unfortunate, but there was some telltale signs earlier that it could have been bad. And then just that second half, and it was like those quick gut punches again. And it just seems that it had some reminders of when it happened against Brighton last season. It's like they concede that goal, and it's like that's when they're at their frailest point. And if two go in back to back, then you're just screwed. It's game over.
So another bad part of this contest was Jose Sa. He was kind of all over the place. That second goal, I don't know what he was thinking, Danny. Just really not a good game at all.
Yeah, I don't know. It's to me, it's pretty tough to ascribe blame to any particular part of the defensive unit, just because I think that I'm gonna jump in and briefly defend XG a little bit, which is just it's only a measure to say how good were the chances. And so, it immediately reminded me of the game against Leicester that we lost 4-0 at the end of the Steve Davis caretaker managership, where, we didn't really allow them tons of chances, but they were just incredibly clinical with them. And some of them were even very difficult chances, like the Cole Palmer goal. is not a high XG chance because it's literally very difficult to score that. So like that was an amazing finish because he takes it on the first touch. So yes, Jose Sa's positioning is not amazing for that goal. I also think that Yersa Mosquera does not like, he is favorite for that long ball every day of the week. And I just think that his body positioning was such that he allowed that one touch ball. But again, we're talking about 2 1 touches, like the first time pass to Cole Palmer and the first time shot, that both have to work out kind of perfectly. And I'm not trying to make excuses like, you know, these were just fluky goals or whatever. We gave them these opportunities and we have to like live with the consequences. But I do think that, you know, if we're trying to not lose our heads over the minor stuff, you know, like I think that like a lot of this to me speaks of a more like systemic problem that Gary O'Neill, I have hope can sort out. I think there was a bit of naivety going on in terms of how we set up, but I also think that like these are things that I've come to trust Gary to be able to see those and sort them out. And maybe I'm wrong. He's also a young head coach and he's going to make mistakes too. So yeah.
When that move was coming together, I didn't even fear a panic at the time because I thought, yeah, he's going to shoot, but there'll no way that he'll catch Sarr out. But then as the camera panned across really quickly, it was just like, what is he doing there? Why is he backpedaling from that part of the box? And then you just showed it on the other angle.
Yeah.
From going lengthways down the pitch. I don't even understand at what point he thought he was going to come and claim that ball. Again, like the goal with the header last week, either stay in your line or if you come and claim it. I genuinely don't understand what goes on in his mind in terms of seeing that play form, thinking to himself, oh yeah, I can come and get that at this exact precise moment. That
you and everyone else.
it just blew me away. And I think that this is the second game running where we've had at least one of his goal kicks just bang out of play off the deck. And it's not necessarily about playing with his feet. And let's say we're talking solely Aaron Ramsdale. There's probably not much difference in those two capabilities of their feet. But you do the comparison of how they can deliver the ball. And I think that's what they're genuinely looking for. They're looking for that if you've got to go long or longish, that's where the goalkeeper adds a tremendous dimension to how this side wants to play, because Sarr can't do that. He's not got that pinpoint accuracy with his feet. You could jump on a bunch of YouTube clips that a geek like me has watched in terms of seeing Aaron Ramsdale ping 5 minutes worth of clips of balls straight to his teammate and put him in challenging positions. I think that's where they're looking at the goalkeeper. Apart from that, like saving percentages, yeah, probably pretty equal. The percentage of opportunity to drop a massive clanger, probably the same between Ramsdale and Sarr as well. So I just generally think it comes down to how he can move the ball with his feet if they do want an upgrade on him.
Sounds like Paul's on Team Ramsdale.
Yeah,
Adam, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just want to add, I wonder how much of we're seeing the worst of Sa because he expects to be on his way out, or he expects somebody to come in and actually challenge him for the number one, and he can't take that pressure very well. I mean, when he doesn't have to think he's an excellent goalkeeper, when he has to think he's a terrible goalkeeper, I think that's fair to say. I think everyone in the world would agree with that. So, yeah, I kind of wonder how much of this is just his confidence is waning. He's looking to leave. He wants to get out. I'd like to see him after the window closes, if he's still here. And I think we'd see an improvement in his performance. But I think this question of whether am I going to be playing for this club tomorrow is weighing heavy on his mind. And he's a professional footballer. He should do better. But I think that's a major aspect as to why he's making so many mistakes, more mistakes than we really have seen in his tenure with us.
I think what the issue is here, and the whole fuck up with this financial situation keeps on trotting out. You don't want to change your goalkeeper right at the start of the season after you've had 3 months of pre-season to get someone new in and bed them in and get to know the defenders. And it may not be even through till Friday, even if he's got talk of a move to Saudi. Their transfer windows open much later, so there could be that going on in the background. But you imagine if nothing happens, he leaves and we're left with Dan Bentley till December. It doesn't even bear thinking about. So it's a cluster, whatever way you look at it.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Do it.
I'd rather play Tom King than
just the comedy value.
Yeah, I would agree.
He might score a goal. I mean, he's done it before.
Guinness World Record.
Alex, another one who's had kind of a rough start to the season is Hee-Chan Huang. What do you think's going on there? And is his spot in the starting 11 on the line?
I think it should be, and I think that I in an ideal world, a really strong forward line for Wolves would have Huang, a guy again who scored double-digit goals in the EPL last year, be a good option off of the bench. I was actually kind of surprised that he, with Cunha coming back into the team, earned the right to keep his place, considering the preseason that Rodrigo Gomez has had and really the flashes that Rodrigo Gomez has had. And by no means did he light the world on fire against Arsenal, but it is Arsenal. And I do think that generally, I feel like his work rate is probably just as high, if not higher than Huang. He runs around pressing like crazy, like the, young man that he is, like you would want him to. And I just feel like he's just a little bit more present. He's a little bit more threatening. Like Huang, I don't know how good of a wide midfielder, if we're calling this a true 4-2-3-1, wide midfielder / winger, Huang really is. He's good around the goal. He scores a lot of sloppy goals, like on second balls that are parried out from the keeper. He kind of is the right place, right time guy. But I don't think that that's what Wolves need when they finally have a partnership that can thrive through the middle in Cunha and Strand Larsen. What I think they need is a guy who can bring pace, a lot of width, and be at that back post when he needs to be. And he just wasn't. I think that, the substitution patterns would suggest that I think Gary O'Neill is probably catching on to that. And I think his good faith he earned with a good, a fortunate season last year is probably waning a little bit. So I wouldn't be shocked if, even with the midweek fixture, if Rodrigo Gomez is on the team sheet instead of him come Saturday, because so far, based on the body of work we've seen in this preseason and season, I think he deserves it.
Adam, we looked at the bench the last 2 games heading into it, and we're like, man, this is really great benches. We haven't seen this on Wolves in a while. But really, the bench wasn't an impact this week. What's the deal?
I think by the time it was time to make subs, it might have been a little too late. I think, it was the defense kind of let us down, but then also Ait-Nouri was the one making all those forward runs. So it's kind of hard to switch up the system, make your substitutions. You also substituted Pablo Sarabia, who is very hit or miss. Daniel Podence, who I'm surprised is still at the club. Craig Dawson, who I think added a lot to the defense and was necessary and probably should have come on once the 3rd or 4th goal came in, and maybe we would have kept our goal differential at a reasonable place, and it would have been a complete blowout. But, yeah, I mean, we do have a team full of wingers, but we don't play the right ones. I mean, Sarabia is the highest on the payroll, so he has to play. But I'd rather see Chiquinho get out there and push and go against the back line and challenge them and be confusing, and their defense wouldn't have known what to do. And we had Rodrigo Gomez, who I think is excellent and should have started before Huang, and he better start against Burnley and he better start against Forest. it's partially Gary O'Neill is a young coach and is doing what he thinks is best based off of the personnel he has, but also based off of their salaries and value. Like, we almost sold Huang, or we had an offer for Huang for $25 million, and we turned it down, and now he probably shouldn't be in the team. But it's tough to make those impacts when you're down as far as you were.
Danny?
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit to that, just to say that, like, if we're talking about negatives, and I generally see the positives even in games like this, but something I was disappointed in the first half, it was great that the team was really fired up and trying to really fight. They felt sort of hard done by obviously the social media, whatever that happened beforehand, and then obviously whatever weirdness happened with Jackson after the first goal. But some of that stuff really needed to get a lid put on it. And it's funny, we spent all last season talking about, Kilman not having the right qualities of a captain because he's a bit more muted, a lot more muted. But this was a game where I thought that Lamina and Cunha both sort of not necessarily were like egging people on, but were like allowing things to get more and more hot. And through the second half, I didn't have any real concerns going into the break. But then when they score right out of the second half, I think that either the captains, the like leadership on the field, or the substitutions needed to sort of like calm things down. Like, we had a real chance, even at 3-2 down, to come back in that. And I just think that a lot of what happened afterwards was us just like frantically trying to chase a goal in any way. And it's just like, look, we might lose this 3-2, but still feel good about the result. Like, that'd be fine, but like the way that it transpired was just like kind of a complete head loss. And that's why I think like Craig Dawson was a decent, as Adam says, like, is a decent substitution to bring on, but he probably came on too late to really change that attitude. So yeah, that's something I'd like to see improve in the coming games, because we know that the games against Forest can sometimes get feisty.
Sometimes. Guys, now let's talk about the ugly. And I think we have some conflicting opinions on this. And it has to do with Adam's old boy, Pedro Neto, who celebrated after really a nice assist on the last goal. Came on, got claps, but, after that, he had a big celebration, wrapped his legs around his teammate. So it's a no stupid question from Brian Donnelly. Who's the better heel now, Neto or Nunez? Danny, you're laughing. Go ahead.
I mean, sir, first of all, my instinct is that like no one's going to be a bigger heel than Nunez, but also he's sort of dropped off into complete obscurity. So it might just end up being Neto by default, because it's not like we're seeing Nunez every other week playing for City or something. Like, he's just a forgotten man. So maybe the answer is Neto.
Paul, what do you think?
I think that if he'd have actually scored, he wouldn't have celebrated. I think he'd have got that walk away and acknowledgement to his teammates, and that would have been it. He gets a pass from me with the celebration as part of the team, because it wasn't his goal. He's caught up in that group. It just makes me think, like, can you imagine going to like I don't know, you transfer from one grocery store to the other, and then like you sell this big $100 bag of groceries to someone, you get a nice little bonus about it, then you celebrate. And then could you imagine getting a transfer to another grocery store and doing the same, and you're celebrating that? It's like, come on, in the grand scheme of things, if you're getting beaten up about someone scoring against you and celebrating, then I think you've got bigger things to worry about in life.
I just figure he's excited for his mate to have scored. João Felix just came in. Also, it's a bit of nothing, but yeah, it's just it's a bunch of firestorm about nothing. But I do want to say that I know we're going to throw it over to Alex. If we could have only recorded what Alex said before we started going live, because that would have been worth airing.
I mean,
I
okay.
log on and the first thing I hear is "fuck Neto."
All right. Well, yeah, I guess so. Well, it doesn't help that, that club generally and all of its players seem to be some of the least likable people. And he is now fitting right in. It's okay. Look, I understand, like, you can get caught up in the moment. It is an exciting thing, but minutes prior, you're like yucking it up with all your old pals. 2 weeks ago, you're crying as you're leaving Compton. Like, and I understand that. Like, we're human. There's we contain multitudes. He can be sad about leaving, but also excited about the fact that João Felix, his international teammate, scored. I also just think generally, and maybe this is me getting older and becoming a grumpy old man, because I used to not care about this stuff.
It is.
Which, yeah, it definitely is. But like the sixth goal in an absolute blowout and mockery when more than half of our fans have already left doesn't really warrant that kind of celebration anyway. Like, do you see guys celebrating touchdowns when it's 42-7 in the fourth quarter? No, you run back to and like, who am I to tell these supreme athletes like what they should be doing? But it's just bad optics. And the last thing I will say, you could say this about Neto, and I think that sometimes we overrate what he meant to Wolves a little bit. Like, calling him a club legend is probably overshooting it a little bit. He was a club potential star boy who never lived up. But
good God, Alex.
He did become our greatest. He did become our greatest sale ever. So thank you for that. And I did love him as a player. But do you think in any world, I don't even care if the Champions League was on the line, that Ruben Neves would go to Molineux, score a banger from outside the box for, Newcastle United, and celebrate and wrap his legs up, open his legs up to his teammate and act a fool like that? Could you ever see? That's all I will say. And if that's the standard we're going to hold him to in terms of like what he meant to the club, then yeah, no, it's not the standard he should be held to, because he would never live up to that. That's all I'm saying.
I think if Neves scores, he runs around doing his celebration. Neto's always been a celebrator. Ask the Liverpool fans. They hate him because of it. They cannot stand the guy because of it. Like, it's just his thing. He's an excitable guy. Adam, are you going to defend? Or
no.
Add on Alex.
I'm going to add on Alex.
Hold on.
You're okay. You didn't score. Number one, you wrapped your legs around another man celebrating. Number two, you played fine. You had a few minutes, but like you were literally crying 2 weeks ago. You didn't want to leave. You told everyone you didn't want to leave. You were so happy there. We love it here. His girlfriend posted the same, or wife, partner posted it. We love it here. This is the greatest place. You come back 2 weeks later. You play for 20 minutes. You get one assist after the team is already defeated, and then you run around celebrating like a crazy person. I'm sorry. You don't get it. You don't get it. You never got it. If that's what you think was the right thing to do, you never got it. And I'm ashamed to be nothing but Neto at this time because of his behavior. I just don't understand how everyone, when who was the midfielder that left West Ham and moved to Arsenal? Rice. When Rice moved over and scored his banger against them, he did nothing. He was calm. And you know what? If he's the legend and their record sale, then you should do the same thing, Neto. It's been 2 weeks. If it was 6 months, okay. If it was a year, maybe a little bit better. But I agree, Neves would never celebrate a goal against us. I don't even think Raul would celebrate against us. I don't think that Adama would celebrate against us. If he could score. Did Jota ever do a crazy celebration against us? Have you ever scored against us? I don't know. Like, come on, man. You're a 25-year-old man. You assisted a goal. Chill.
I would have celebrated. I'm not gonna lie. I still would have celebrated. Everybody gets mad because Diego Costa took his little victory lap after coming out and Chelsea. Oh, he plays for Wolves. He shouldn't do that. Neto scores. Oh, he shouldn't do that. He should respect the fan. Come on, guys. Like, what are we doing? It's an emotional game. Neto's an emotional guy. We know that. That's why we liked him. I saw him celebrate. I was like, yeah, that's about right. And besides, yeah, you say he was crying. How do we know he wasn't kind of like pushed out the door by Wolves? Maybe that was part of the celebration too. We don't know that.
Then point to Jeff Shee and give him the middle finger like the rest of us want to do. If you were pushed out, that's your solution, and we all would have applauded.
That would have been.
Someone also has to take the wrath of us giving up 6 goals, and this is kind of like therapeutic. So know, like there's also part of that we just had to get out. So
Alex is on a roll tonight. Whew.
Sorry.
Whew. I want to hear now about the other thing, what Alex's thoughts are, and that's the other ugly is what's going on with transfer rumors. Friday, Gary O'Neill's like, no, it'll be fine. We'll get in the guys. Sunday, he's like, well, we're on a tight budget. We don't know who's coming in. We don't know who's going out. Paul, what do you make of the mess right now?
Exactly that word. It's a mess. It's badly organized. It's an issue that you're having to wait till the last minute, even if somehow all these dominoes fall in exactly the right place, and we have 3 players come in key positions. It's been a bad miss. Some along the line somewhere that it's come down to the final week, especially if you're talking about goalkeeper, especially if you're talking about a centre-back, a starting centre-back, someone who can work well in a 4 and play in a team that defends a high line. That like the stuff that O'Neill's coming out with, it's not like it's been repeated like 4 times now. And it just, the narrative doesn't change, and it's got everything to do with the owners. Who else in this whole league is talking about financial issues or financial pressure to stop them signing? The only one's Everton, and look what shit they're in terms of like new stadium and charges and things like that. The likes of Forest, Fulham, all these teams that have done less transition to their sides, their starting 11 than we have. They're rebuilding their teams based off a sale. We're fanning around trying to get a centre back in and being outbid by Ipswich for a very average defender from the Championship. It just doesn't stack up.
Blows my mind. So because we know transfer deadline week, things can change like crazy. We won't delve into all these little things, but I just want a quick yes or no from you guys on a couple questions. Yes or no, Ramsdale coming in, Paul?
Yep.
Danny?
Sure. I don't love the price.
Adam?
I'll take him, but I'd like to keep Saw and have them compete.
Okay. Alex?
Yes.
Okay. Koleosho, who will be my new favorite player as Mr. Peanut Butter and Jelly Sandwich. Paul, is he coming in or coming out? Yes or coming in? Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, I love you, Paul. Danny?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, yes. Adam?
I agree. I think he'll come in.
I thought you were telling me yesterday he wasn't.
I didn't think we would. I don't think we would do a $20 million or £20 million bid. I thought we were going to try to get him for less. So I think with all of the heat that the club is going to get, I think they'll try to do something. And it's between that and a center back yet to be named. I think this one's the easier one to get done. The player already wants to join the club. So,
okay, Alex, yes or no? Is he coming in?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself too. Okay. The Magic center back that's going to have experience and be a starter for Wolves after all this Premier League experience. Paul, is that Magic center back coming in? Yes or no?
No, I think they're finally showing the true colours in letting everyone down.
Okay. Danny?
I don't think so.
Adam?
No, and only because it would mean we'd have to get a move for Santi, and we still can't get a move for any of the other players we want to get rid of, like Fabio.
Alex?
I'm going to say yes, because I think they will be willing to spend the money they won't be willing to spend on Koleosho, and I agree with it.
See, I don't think they are because I don't think this magic center back who's going to solve our problems is out there unless you're willing to spend, Kilman money, which we're not. So it is what it is. Guys, I'm sure it'll be exciting transfer window talk next week. But on the Yerson bum squeezometer, Paul, after this game with the transfer window, 1 to 10, how squeezed is your bum?
You muted.
6.
6? Okay. Danny?
A heavy sigh. I think 6 is about right. I'll say 6.5 at this moment because we're amping each other up. I feel a little bit more.
Adam?
I'll say 5 at this moment, but ask me again next week after we play Burnley and Forest.
Alex?
Yeah, that's a great caveat. Everything hangs on this week, but I would say I'm still at a 5.
I'm at a 4. We'll see next week. These are 2 big games coming up. And speaking of the 2 big games, the first one is a Carabao Cup matchup on Wednesday. It's at 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. Danny, do we know where this is being broadcast?
Isn't it the case that all the FA Cup and Carabao Cup games got picked up by CBS, which means Paramount Plus? I have not checked whether this specific game is going to be broadcast, so I'm looking it up right now.
I did not see any US-based broadcast for it when I checked, but that could change, possibly.
Paramount Plus does have a listing Wednesday, 2 p.m. for Wolves versus Burnley.
All right. Well, that's much better news than I thought, because I thought I was going to have to go dodgy IPTV stream on Sky Sports Plus. So, woohoo!
I can't believe it. We're getting an early Carabao Cup stream. What were we doing last year? Wasn't it as like there were all these rumors of a stream, but some of us were like, trying to find like a radio or like terrestrial radio.
Yeah, I think we ended up just listening to Mikey Burrows. That was our go-to. Paul, what do Wolves do in this matchup to forget all about Sunday?
I think a rotation of certain players. I'd go fairly attacking 4-4-2 and try and get the form back that way. I think you could still put out a decent side if hopefully still in contention by not being on the bench on Sunday. But this would be an ideal game for Chiquinho down the right to let him just have like 60 minutes, go for it, see what he can do. Probably, but then like the forward line made well. I think that the forward line's probably not so much of an issue in that you try and keep the momentum with Strand Larsen going and play Wang as his partner at Rest Cunha, especially with him coming off early yesterday. So I go 4-4-2 pretty strong, put out an attacking team, and what's the worst that could happen? Chip 6 goals in.
Oh my God, don't even start with that.
Adam, do you go with a lot of bench guys, or do you still think you got to go some starters?
I think you go some starters. I think Lamina has to play. I don't think I'd play Strand Larsen. I would not play Cunha. If Podence's still here, I think he could slot into the 10. I think Wang, even though he probably doesn't deserve to keep his space, should play as the 9 if we're going to be using him as a backup 9. I would change the back line, maybe Totti as left back, Santi and Dawson, maybe give Mascara a rest. Lima plays right back for me. Tommy Doyle probably deserves some game time. Rest João Gomez, or rest Lamina and play Tommy Doyle, one of the two. But yeah, I think as we said during preseason, we have a pretty strong second 11. I think those guys deserve to get some time and show what they can do, and I don't think we risk our main players for this one, other than 3 or 4 sprinkled throughout, kind of as we've seen Gary do prior.
Okay, Paul, you had Wolves making it to the finals of the Carabao Cup. So what's your prediction for this contest?
My predictions are that I'm terrible at predictions. So it's
You know
got
this.
to be that bad performance. Even though I wanted like that attacking team to come out, it's got to be that bad performance, 1-1 draw, and they scrape it through on penalties.
Wolves on penalties. Okay. Danny, what you got?
Yeah, man, those first two games really make this one difficult, doesn't it? I think Wolves pulled out, but not without making us sweat. So I'm going to go 2-1. Wolves. Shout out to 1-0, which feels like an extremely like Wolves Burnley score, but I'll go 2-1.
Adam?
I'm going to say 3-2 Wolves.
Okay. Alex?
I can't see Wolves keeping a clean sheet, but I also feel like they have to win this. So I'm going to say 3-1. Koleosho deal falls through. He absolutely scores against us because he gets back in the team. So if I had to place a single bet on this game, it would be anytime goal scorer for Koleosho. So, but Wolves win 3-1.
Alex is making enemies. I may drive up to New York City just to smack you around.
Hey, what if 2 or 3 of those goals are from Podence and Geddes, and then they get moves before Friday? It's all
big moves.
Yeah, that'd be great. Come on, there's some positivity left in me.
PSG
If
is
ifs and buts were if ifs and buts for candy and nuts, we'd all have a wonderful Christmas. It would be great. I want to say 0-0 Burnley and it's Wolves, but 2-1 Wolves. Actually, no. 1-1 draw with Wolves in PKs. I like what Paul said, but I think it's going to be like really bad PKs. It's going to be dicey. All right, then the big matchup on the road at Forest, Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Forest has slowly become one of our big rivals, I feel like. Paul, back four?
Ooh, yeah, I think it's got to be, just even if it's up to this international break that he runs with it. There was even certain points after yesterday. I was looking back at the result and thinking ahead to Forest, and I actually had some positivity about it that we haven't won there in a little while. We due a win there. But now I'm beginning to doubt it a little bit. And it's even things like them going in for Jimenez that has really soured me. It's like he could be the same as Strand Larsen. We could have the better striker out the two, but it's just those things that irk me. It's like that's the profile of player at an amount of money that we should be going in for, and if he signs to them, that'll be really disappointed, and it'll be another element of my hatred. But I just think there's too much going on with that club and the players that they've got to make my 2-0 away win go into the international break on somewhat of a high, a reality. So yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to play out now.
Interesting. Danny, what does your scouting report say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what we expect in a lot of ways, because of course we know at least 3 of the characters there very well. But the interesting thing that it comes up a lot when we talk about these transfer things, whatever the hell they're doing over there, especially with the owner, it's like they've bought David Carmo, who was at FC Porto, and he was linked to us. He's a center back. Maybe he was that magical center back we were talking about, but then loaned him immediately to Olympiacos, who of course is owned by the same person as Forest are. So whatever grifting they're doing over there is at least interesting. Who knows? And then the one that might be actually very interesting / hopefully not too painful is the winger Ramon Sosa, who we were linked with heavily early in the window. A lot of that could have been agent stuff. You know, they knew that he had interest from the Premier League, but you know they were just trying to up the price or whatever. But that was someone who I think a lot of people online saw as like the Neto replacement. And he just got sort of unveiled at their last game. And I do wonder if he plays a part in that. That'll be kind of interesting. But yeah, you know, we'll have to see. Of course, the main danger I'm sure we'll all feel in our hearts is Chris Wood, who's been up top for them. And, you know, Nuno will be there on the bench, the man who watched Chris Wood score a hat trick at Molineux before deciding that he was his number 9 at Forest. So, yeah, I don't know. A real mixed bag for us, which I feel like is the way that they've been ever since they came up.
Am I reading that right? That Carmo only went for 11 million pounds? Jeez, what a steal. Okay, guys, let's hear the predictions on this one. Adam, I'll start with you this time.
I'm going to say 1-0 Forest, but this will be last season's Ipswich. And we, after the break, will come back with the fully unveiled back 5 because we didn't sign a center back, and we will beat the Titans of the Premier League and be comfortably mid-table come the end of the year.
Wow.
You're so big. Man, you're giving Andrew Smith a run for his money at Resident Curmudgeon.
Yeah, I have them both on at some point.
Oh, jeez. Danny?
Maybe a similar vibe, but I'll go with the Wolves win. I'm going to go 2-1. So it's going to be like a week of 2-1s where we're not quite sure if we've actually turned the corner or not.
Okay. Alex?
I'm seeing this in the chat from Noah and from Todd of Minnesota Wolves, and I'm right there with the 1-1. A very disappointing 1-1 that felt like it should have been like 3-1 Wolves.
Paul?
Got to take that positivity wherever it came from, just to look to the heavens and take that. So Nottingham Forest 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Positive Paul tonight.
It's balancing Adam a little bit. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a drunk game. I think Mosquera's going to get either 2 yellows or a red.
Oh, Lord.
When the score is 2-2, and yet we'll still pull it out, a 3-2 win. And Morgan Gibbs White and Cunha get into it again. Man. It's gonna be entertaining. Get your popcorn ready.
You're hurting me so much. This is the exact opposite of what I want. Especially after that Chelsea game. Just want to keep a lid on it, be professional, try to get some kind of result.
It's Forest, man. There's gonna be shenanigans going on, even amongst the social media team. We know this.
Podence with a red card on the bench.
Oh,
that's a good shout.
I would love to find a book that lets you bet on that.
So would Sandro Tonali.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, guys. It is time for No Stupid Questions.
That's right. No Stupid Questions, of course, brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Head on over to esfuerzowines.com. Promo code Wolves. Okay, so let's start with a question from Stu, friend of Pod and of course frequent host of the Wolves Fancast. After a humiliation as bad as Sunday, do you hide all evidence of being a Wolves fan when out and about in real life to restrict the potential mockery, or do you wear a Wolves shirt immediately and take it like a champ? This is a question I was asking myself actually on Sunday afternoon when I had to get on with my life. So what would you guys do?
I'd wear it. But let's be honest, too. We live in America where not everyone knows who Wolves are, so they wouldn't even care.
I'm still embarrassed like 3,000 miles away, so mine's off as soon as the game ends. It's like on Sunday, here's where it's getting worse even, because I think it's like the general popularity of the league and like circle of friends. Like they've either got some interest in soccer or they know about it. So on Sunday, I went for a run with our workout group. So I wore one of my old jerseys, and it was on the premise that I was going back and just watching it wearing it in support, and chatted about it to one of the guys, and then came back today and went for a workout this morning, and he was there, and he was like, oh, I'm surprised to see you this morning, Paulie. You're taking out the frustrations on such an embarrassing loss. And like that used to never happen. You could just like walk down the street in little old Sugarland, Texas, and not have to worry about a thing. And now I'm thinking, well, who am I going to be seeing? Who knows? I support the Wolves. It's like it's a combination. You don't know where you're going to get abuse from now. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just because, like in the US, like you said, it used to be completely obscure, but now I think most people know just enough to know about the Premier League. And then they see a team that's not one of the big six and they go, oh man, your team really sucked today. Like they just, the only thing that they know is that you're some shit team that's not the big six. For me personally, normally I'm the same way. I have no shame, nobody's going to recognize my Wolves jersey for the most part. But this time we actually finally did another meetup for Baltimore Wolves, which was wonderful in many ways. We actually got there and they said that their bartender hadn't showed up, and try back in 20 minutes, which was not going to cut it. So we were walking across the street to another bar, and then the bartender yelled at us from down the street to come on in. And when we came in, we saw Cunha and Nicholas Jackson scrapping, and the score was 1-0. But as the game was ending, it started to filter in with some Liverpool fans because that was the next game on. And of course, they immediately recognized the jerseys, and they're chatting with me the whole time. So there was no escaping at that point. I was spending the rest of the day pretty much at my apartment anyway. So, the answer is I had to just endure, I wouldn't even say they were mean. They were just patronizing. They were really overly friendly to me about it. And that was even worse than them just telling me that Wolves are shit.
Yeah.
Look, guys, I grew up rooting for the Cubs and the Bears.
That's right.
And the U.S. men's national team. I'm used to having to wear stuff and just embrace the humiliation.
Yeah. It just invites so much conversation. And it really is about the people that come to watch the next game. Like Danny said, the amount of Liverpool fans were like, oh, man. Oh, what a tough result. Like, I don't want your pity. Just come on. So that's what it's about. Let's move on to Todd DeWitt, who says, after a huge loss, sometimes it's nice to bring a motivational speaker to raise spirits. Who should Gary bring in to talk with the team? He nominates Sting the wrestler or Sting the musician. Ooh,
I'm going on this one. I'm going Sting the musician on some tantric sex vibe to try and make their performance last longer.
Woo. Throw an E on this episode, Alex.
Jeez, come on. 50 minutes is enough.
Adam, what do you got for this one?
Stone Cold Steve Austin, man. Have Stone Cold Steve Austin meet up with Stone Cold Trent Larson. They'll talk to the team, get them all. If you're gonna, you could do the Collins stunner that he did on Jack Grealish. Maybe that'll give him a little attitude in a good way and keep some balls out of the net.
The answer will always be you invite Matt Foley in. Do you know who that is, Paul? Matt Foley?
I know Mick Foley, if you're talking wrestling. Matt Foley.
I was just going to say.
I ain't got a clue.
Matt Foley lives in a band down by the river. And I know you got thoughts of winning the Premier League, but you're not going to win jack shit.
Oh man. By the way, this is my wrestling ignorance. Last thing on this, but wasn't Sting the wrestler like mostly silent? Or is that just like back in the day and then he kind of ditched that persona?
Yeah. At one point.
Okay.
Wow, I mean, really revealing, this man Todd DeWitt's wrestling ignorance to suggest a silent wrestler to give a motivational speech.
No, I'm not trying to reveal his ignorance. I'm revealing my own. No, I'm sure he speaks now. He's probably still wrestling, and he probably doesn't wear the same. He was like the brooding, quiet guy in the rafters, from what I remember. But anyway, let's wrap with Drew Freakin. You have Jeff Shee's email password for 24 hours. Are you using it to contact clubs for transfers, to send a resignation letter on Jeff's behalf to his bosses, or do you change his email signature to include "Don't be sad, mate" on all outgoing messages? Paul, what do you do as you hack Jeff Shee's computer?
That resignation letter, I just need some outlet.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be the resignation letter. And you add in the "Don't be sad, mate" for good measure. just so they know that it's you. Like, what if somebody suspects that it's not really you saying it, no, it's got to be the resignation letter. That man, I mean, I don't want to dredge up all the transfer stuff, but to me, the biggest problem is the communication. The head loss on Twitter is completely just because who the hell knows what money we have to spend? Why the hell are we talking about it? Like Paul said, like, why are we talking about it publicly? What the hell is this whole thing? That guy needs to go.
The funny thing is, he apparently has rabbit ears and listens to everything and reads online and still makes the decision he does. Like, it's the exact opposite of what.
With that being said, Jeff Shee, if you're watching and you want to send some Americans to go watch Wolves so that you can get more overseas money, I'm sure some of us won't have any shame about it. So,
yeah, whole lot of Wolves sponsored by Fosun.
Sponsored by Jeff Shee personally. That'll do wonders for our listenership.
You get $5 on that bag of crisps, and that's your sponsorship.
Yeah, they thought they were mad about international fans coming to Molyneux before. Wait till we get flown in on his private jet, on Jeff Shee's jet. Yeah.
You need to also put on the email signature of the wolf. Or
yeah.
The
wolf.
All right, Adam, you got his computer. You're logged in. You're Jeff Shee. What are you doing?
I'm saying to Hobbs, buy whoever you want to buy. I'm signed off. Don't ask me for permission. Ask me. Just say just give me an apology if you overspend. And because if we don't do that, I think Hobbs leaves come the end of the year. It's been now several windows where he hasn't been allowed to do what he's supposed to do. He looks bad by not signing the players he wants to sign. We're bringing in cheap replicas. The in-house version, the pseudo version of the players we want to get. We're now on E or F or G from the list. And I not to be negative, but if I'm Hobbs and I'm as good as everyone says I am, I'm going to Spurs.
Man, hating on pseudo too. Unpopular take. I actually like the quality of those kits, except for the JD Sports logo, which even on the players is like all crinkly and stuff because of the way it is. The quality is nice.
The away shirt is selling like hotcakes. There's no more sizes, like in medium, large, or anything for adults. I went to buy my first player shirt ever, and they were all sold out. So now I have time for the João Gomez shirt I was going to buy to be dated when he gets sold, and maybe it did me a favor to wait till after the deadline. I'm just messing around. He's not going anywhere. Thanks to everyone who tweeted in your questions at WLW Pod is where you get us, or on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. That's still a polarizing thing. And thanks to those who emailed the show. hello@wholelotofwolves.com is where you can email us. So keep the no stupid questions coming. We love it. And of course, it's brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines.
Danny, the Fan Fest in Chicago is coming up soon, and people can submit their information.
Yeah, that's right. As a lot of people know, some of us were really involved in the preseason stuff, and we've kind of kept that group going, behind the scenes with a lot of the other people that are in supporters groups across the country. So that's been really helpful. That was something that, I think we wish that we would have had, years ago when these fan fests were just sort of drifting by and people would sort of show up to them when they can. So stay tuned to our socials for any updates. Currently, what's going on is that we've already put out an interest form. We're just trying to get a head count for the the club, just like vague numbers to see what we're going to have. But, the reality is it's really not going to terribly matter unless we reach like, massive hundreds of people numbers, because people are already starting to line stuff up for the Wolves fans. Joe, who we had on the first episode of the season, has already been hard at work. Of course, he's in Detroit, which is by American standards not that far away from Chicago. But I know that he and some others have already lined up a bar to be, sort of our home spot, so that, look out for that kind of information. But definitely go to our Twitter profile. That's where I put out the form to show your interest. There's also some assorted stuff in that form, just with like certain activities, like gauging interest in certain things around the weekend. And I'll put that out again, tomorrow morning, basically when all this stuff gets posted. But yeah, stay tuned to the socials. It seems like the club is trying to send out more of a delegation this time, and I definitely know that there's a good number of people, at least already. I'd say the same number that made it out to Nashville last time, and it's still early days, so I'm sure there'll be more people who decide to go as we get closer.
According to the results of the forum, there's already 34 people coming, so
yeah,
could be exciting.
And as we know, that's always like kind of a fraction of who's actually going to end up going. That's what happened with Nashville too, where the number that we knew, like, we basically doubled it, and that's how many people we had. So,
Yep. All right, Adam, how can we find you on the socials?
I am still at Nothing But Neto, but if you search Stone Cold Stram Larson, I'm findable there with the amazing profile photo that Dave at the party made for me from Talking Wolves. So yes, that's where you can find me, and you can watch my tweets or read my tweets about being angry at the club.
Nothing but sellies.
And that brings this week's episode to an end. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Without you doing that, there wouldn't be a show. Thank you to Danny on the socials and Alex putting it together. We will be back this time next week. We're going to cover the Burnley game and review the Notts Forest game before that international break. So hopefully we've got over the embarrassment. So when we are walking down the street, we've put our Wolves jersey back on. And if we do bump into someone, we tell them, up the mighty Wolves.